What I'm going to supply you with is a frame for and strategies around thinking about early engagement and localized recruitment strategies. Certainly at your institutions, there are recruitment strategies in the works you may be doing or talking about doing, grow your own. And hopefully what I provide can just help cultivate allies, sharpen your thinking about this really important work. So on the screen, got two figures here. Michelle Reininger wrote a paper in 2012. She's a researcher at Stanford University called Hometown Disadvantage. It depends where you're from. And it showed that over 60% of teachers across the country teach within 20 miles of where they went to high school themselves. And that's across all content areas. It's lower in rural areas where it's harder to retain college graduates. It's around 40% there, and higher and more concentrated in urban areas where it can be as high as 80%. But if you walk into most schools in the country, a majority and often a supermajority of the teachers are from the area. It's a very, very regionalized workforce pipeline, whether that pipeline is intentionally and purposefully tended to or not, and whether folks are stumbling in kind of underskilled late in the game, or whether they're starting early with that kind of intentional cultivation and early exposure. The future teaching workforces of each community, more or less, are in the community right now, often sitting on the student side of the desks. So since we all know that teacher quality is so essential, the most influential factor within schooling to impact students' achievement, then investing in this talent pool that's already there, altruistic people in the community, makes sense. We have to be very intentional, basically, about engaging the future teaching workforce, because the status quo is obviously not working, and we may be dissatisfied with certain aspects of policy, funding, systemic inequalities. All of that is real. All the challenges are real. But of course, it's impossible to throw up our hands and then 10 years from now, 5 years from now, have just a complete bottoming out of talented individuals entering teaching. We need to cultivate the next generation of change agents while we fight on multiple fronts to sustain the teaching profession, to cultivate its future, and to educate. There's some powerful data here that can hopefully help sharpen our thinking about this as a profession. In 2015, and then they updated it in 2016, ACT reported in their Condition of Future Educators report, there's an all-time low of college-bound high school graduates, 4.6%, indicating they want to become teachers. If we don't engage young people during high school, they get to the end of high school, they go into college, you ask them, do they want to teach? No. Students are not steering towards teaching. We're also not satisfied with the shortages, especially in certain subjects, especially in special education. We need a more diverse teaching profession to be reflective of our communities. Intentional cultivation is necessary, and that's what I want to dive into with my time here. For folks looking for a really good lit review of the research around Grow Your Own Teacher programs, because these have not really been on the radar, I recommend looking up American Institutes for Research's lit review for the Grow Your Own Texas program. If you just Google those words I said, it'll come up immediately, and really pulls together excellent research about the power and promise of Grow Your Own Teacher programs, especially related to engaging high school students, alongside other career pathway programs, because there haven't been enough quality Grow Your Own Teacher programs engaging early, seeing what happens in 6-7 years, to do serious longitudinal research and have best practices. What we have now is a very compelling hypothesis and lots of promising work that aligns with other research-based work in the field. Bottom line, it's not happening on its own. Status quo is not working to bring in fired up, skilled up young people into traditional educator preparation programs. We need a new generation to fall in love with teaching. Fortunately, teaching is lovable. Students are open to it. Teach.org did a very powerful survey showing that 40% of high school sophomores, 10th graders, asked in the fall of their 10th grade year, would they be open to exploring teaching to learn more about it? 40% said yes, they would. Teaching is interesting. On career inventories by teenagers, overwhelmingly number one is impact of what they want in a career. Not far behind, working with young people, working on a team, being creative, feeling ownership over the work. These are all aspects of teaching in a functional environment. So it's on us as a profession to build a mechanism where they can connect their interest in those kind of factors of impact, working with young people, to helping them understand that they can channel that into a very gratifying career as an educator. But that said, we can't undersell just how hard that is. I mean, if only 5% or fewer of teenagers now are saying they want to teach, we can't undersell the amount of identity cultivation that's needed to help young people as teenagers make a decision. There's always a small number that are very interested from being a small child of becoming a teacher. But there's a much broader pool out there of would-be great teachers who are altruistic, want that impact. We need to get them and help nurture them into the teaching profession. And in order to do that, they have to have armor against an avalanche of discouragement that they're going to face. A recent PDK poll showed that a majority of parents would discourage their students from becoming teachers. A report from Georgia in December 2015 polled all 58,000 teachers in Georgia and found that 2/3 of them would not encourage a 12th grader to pursue teaching. I think we can understand the frustration that folks are speaking out of, but it's on us to sustain our profession. Otherwise, where do we go from here? We have many battles to fight and no silver bullet, but one part of it is really nurturing the next generation to take up that mantle as skilled practitioners and fired up change agents who feel like they're part of the movement. That will happen with educator prep programs and districts working together to serve up really rigorous opportunities for young people to start to cultivate that identity as an educator, to try it out, to test drive it in very authentic ways that are appropriate for where they are in their journey. This was developed from American Institutes for Research. I'm going deep in the pre-collegiate model where the high school students engage in courses, not clubs, but courses that are institutionalized within the school day that typically follow career academy or career and technical education format where you have a pathway, you have work-based learning opportunities, students are going off-site to have student teaching light clinical experiences. That's one model. There's also in the center here, community-focused, engaging adults who are already in the community, who are already showing interest in education and getting them into professional license. And then there's university initiated where often with third-party funders, providing stipends essentially to student teachers and funding residencies so that it's just more feasible for more students who may need to work through college to be able to engage in long-term rigorous pre-service clinical opportunities. All of these require funding and coordination. How to do this with teenagers. One piece that can frequently get left behind that I really want to emphasize here when thinking about engaging high school students, because when I led Educators Rising for 4 years, I traveled around the country and saw all kinds of fledgling programs and more mature programs. And often the last thing that was thought of in these places that fought Herculean battles to stand up these programs, because they're not the norm, there's not a playbook, there's not necessarily an alumni base of these types of programs like there are for FFA or agriculture that are now in leadership positions in states across the country. They've stood up a program and then it gets left to the high school teacher running the program day in, day out to just make it up. And they're reinventing the wheel, they're isolated, they're the only person in their community working on this, and they fall back into their own implicit biases and their own habits and their own preparation experience. We need to prepare young people to become teachers in the mid-2020s and beyond. EPPs are always thinking about this, and they're the ones doing it. So it's essential to help them as partners work with the high school to envision what this should look like. It has to be about quality, a rigorous front end of a coherent continuum, so that the activities that the students are engaging in, the knowledge and skills that they're intentionally cultivating, the dispositions that they're working on, the language that they are learning is all aligned coherently with this continuum of the profession. It's the front end. What's on the screen here are the 7 Educators Rising Standards titles. I recommend Googling this one. The Educators Rising Standards report was published in 2016. It was an NEA-funded project, and these were developed with the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. Using the National Board's exact processes and protocols, we convened a committee of 12 practitioners and used unanimous consent protocols. This really reflects, and the narratives in the report are really powerful, of what the field believes teenage aspiring educators can be grappling with. Having that baseline of expectations for our students from the field helps to professionalize a Grow Your Own program and make sure that teachers aren't just waiting to sustain the profession. Let's talk about what it looks like operationally. The high school teacher that's running this program is essential. When a teenager who goes through this kind of program, let's say we succeed, we hit a grand slam, they become a highly skilled teacher in their community. When they tell their story about how they became a teacher, they will name check that teacher leader in high school who mentored them, tapped them personally, recruited them into the program, nurtured them, taught them the ropes, was very transparent with their own practice, served as an ambassador for the profession for them. So making sure we get the right person at the high school level to be that teacher leader, and then mobilizing just an army of support and resources around them is really, really key. But clinical experiences, the number one reason people enter teaching and the number one reason they stick with teaching, according to the NEA's American Public School Past, Present, Future research, number one reason is working with young people. This is the best part of the teaching experience, is the hands-on working with young people. They're getting out of their classroom, they're pushing into local elementary and middle school classes in a sustained way, they're shadowing, they're getting to feel that impact that they crave. They're getting to have that opportunity to get into their bloodstream I'm Mr. Brown. No one's ever called me that before. I know I just taught this kid something. That's unbelievable. They just recognized me in the grocery store and I feel like a celebrity. All of that is very, very important. And a system for supporting clinical experiences is what makes that happen. There's lots of ancillary benefits to a Grow Your Own program engaging high school students, the college and career readiness piece, which fits into every district's strategic plan. It's also an opportunity for that teacher leader to lead without leaving. They're able to pay forward their talent and expertise and have a mechanism for changing the faculty lounge conversation around teaching. There's so much that educator prep programs can do to entice students, to smooth their path to admission, scholarship-wise, reaching out to other funders, engaging with the students while they're in high school, and pushing on districts to offer real incentives like conditional future teaching contracts, guaranteed interviews, public signing ceremonies. Even though this is still not fully on the radar across the country in terms of operational programs, the will is there and the need is screaming out to get young people who are going to be coming into the profession, get them engaged early so we can have the workforce we need. The University of Nebraska, Omaha has given its Education Foundations intro course to Omaha public schools. A few years ago, 8 high schools were using it. Now there are 13. In the past 3 school years, they've had 225 Omaha public school students go through their intro course while in high school, earn that early college credit. The dean's office worked very closely with the district to make sure everything checked out in terms of giving adjunct credentials to the high school teachers. And out of those 225, 62 enrolled at UNO, which is a far higher proportion of UNO enrollment to the average Omaha public school career pathway course. Out of those 62 students that went to UNO, 63% enrolled directly in the teacher prep program, and out of them, more than half were students of color, more than half were first-generation college students, and UNO is now putting their eggs into this basket over all of their other recruitment strategies. They're no longer having this challenge because they're really going all in with this strategy that they've now been working with for more than 3 years. In terms of providing PD to district leaders, this is another thing that EPPs can do. Towson University is the largest teacher producer in the state of Maryland. So they've partnered with Maryland State Department of Ed to develop a curriculum for high school students that's kind of modeled off of their intro courses. It's a 4-semester pathway that they call TAM, Teacher Academy of Maryland. And Towson hosts a summer institute. So 5 days for new TAM teachers, and then they do one for 5 days for returning TAM teachers for a more advanced level. And it's very powerful. It helps the teachers become networked. Then they sustain that connection on their Towson facilitated Blackboard platform. And it means the world to these teachers. Otherwise, they're on their own. So having this kind of support is very, very powerful. Hosting on-campus events for Grow Your Own participants, there's really nothing like it when you get high school students interested in teaching to meet other high school students interested in teaching from other high schools. They feel like unicorns. They may not fit in necessarily with a lot of other people that they know. So to feel that they're part of a movement, they have a tribe, it's very, very powerful. Convening that with the resources on a college campus is great for college recruitment, and it also really shows great stewardship of the teaching profession for the region to step up and do that. Educators Rising is the national network for high school students exploring teaching. It's a career and technical student organization. Right now, there's about 45,000 students, half are students of color. And there are state and regional affiliates that do that kind of communicating, hosting of events, engaging with the national office, providing PD to teachers in their state. And if you go to the Educators Rising website, you click on who we are, you can see who's already there. There's about 27 state and regional affiliates. I think 4 or 5 of them are run out of EPPs. Whether you become an affiliate, which is a formal MOA process, no money changes hands, but it's the process, or whether you just engage with folks who are already doing it, it can be very illuminating for connecting with folks that are really on the front lines of thinking about engaging high school students. Collaborating with the SE on statewide initiatives, Kentucky State, Murray State, Northern Kentucky University provide dual credit PD to students around the state that are engaging in this SEA facilitated teaching and learning pathway for juniors and seniors in high school. It's very, very powerful. And then you have college students on your campuses that are exploring teaching. They want to be the future of teaching. Getting them into high schools to meet with the high school students exploring teaching is very powerful. That near-peer connection is great. Boston University did a great job on this. High school students exploring teaching in Boston, getting to meet with candidates who are 3 years older than them, who are also interested in this, who are coming to talk to them. They're BU students now. It's very, very empowering. And I think we should never lose sight of how important it is to make students feel genuinely that they're part of something big, that trying out teaching isn't just learning technical skills, although that's empowering, but that they're part of a movement. What change in the world do you want to be a part of?
So essentially, the TAP program is just a way for us to identify potential teacher candidates that are already working in educational settings. And this could be paraprofessionals, teacher assistants, really anyone providing service at school sites that could be recommended by their district for a program like this, where they can keep their job, but also enroll in a program to earn their licensure for teaching. We have several options for students that enroll in the TAP program. Right now, we're seeing most of the students that enter have an interest in special education, which is great. We know that there's a deficit and need there, but we do have the option for early education, general education, physical education, English as a second language. So we have alternate pathways that students can come in and, again, fulfill their licensure requirements, pathway of teaching. So really, this TAP program was around at Weber State well before myself, and it really came from the superintendents of the 6 surrounding school districts reaching out to Weber State and saying that there's a critical need for licensed special education teachers and wanting to find a way to problem solve on how we could, again, develop more teachers that were already exposed to education. The TAP program was initially funded through the Utah State Office of Education and continues to be financially supported through now the Utah State Board of Education, or the USBE. The participants, again, are paid teacher assistants, paraprofessionals, different types of school personnel with the desire to become a fully licensed teacher. The application process, really, we have to rely on our district representatives who know their school site personnel better than we do. So we're being efficient with our screening time. And the applicants that we're going to be interviewing, we want them to come to us highly recommended from their district representatives, whether it's a director of special ed or assistant principals, people that are in supervisor positions to these potential TAP students. Every year we're adding new applicants. We just got a proposal fully funded by the USBE to support our TAP program. So that was exciting news that we would be growing the number of students that we could support financially within the TAP program. So the way the process works is we let the district representatives know how many spots are going to be available for scholarship for the upcoming school year. So they know how many potential TAP students to recruit and encourage to apply for this financial award. And once we get a list of teachers that are recommended for the TAP program, those potential students are recommended to apply. And then we have a screening process on our side where we do, again, a formal interview. One of the main goals out of the screening and selection process is that we really only want students that are really fully committed and all in to seeing this program through, because we definitely realize that there's logistical issues, and we make sure that, again, anyone applying for this program understands that we're interested in having people finish, and we want to make sure that the funding that is given to these students is well used and leads to a fully licensed teacher. As far as the number of 2017-18 applications, we received 56 total. We have 34 students in the TAP program at various levels, as far as level 1 all the way up through student teaching. Total tuition that was paid through the USBE in the 2017-2018 school year was $98,678. So again, you can see the financial support that the state office is ensuring that we have. And just to kind of look at the breakdown of special education teachers and general education teachers, we had 7 teachers in this past school year who earned their license, and 5 were in special ed and 2 were general ed with a focus in elementary education. These are full-time employees in school districts, and I think probably the hardest logistical issue with the TAP program is making sure that we're doing a good job of offering classes throughout the levels, and not just in our special ed track, but in general education as well, at times of the day where they can attend class without having to leave work. Again, re-emphasizing the importance of not only the location of the classes and how close that is to where they work or where they're employed, but also making sure when they do practicum and student teaching, they're not having to drive a really long way to complete that part of the requirement, because again, a lot of times they are leaving their paid jobs. Many of the TAP students that I've spoke to throughout the last 3 years of my time at Weber State all believe that they couldn't do this licensing pathway without a program like TAP because of the financial assistance. But also, one of the things that really resonated with all the students is the support that they really feel they have within TAPT, not only from Weber State and from the faculty side, but even more so, just connecting them to other students who are going through the same situation as far as trying to be working full-time, counting on that paycheck, but also managing the stressors of, again, going back to school. Many of these students qualifying as non-traditional as far as their age. So again, just the camaraderie and support that they lend each other, they were saying, is really a huge part of the success of this program. We were able to use some CEDAR funds from CEDAR 1.0 for the TAP program to try to ease the financial burden of not having students have to purchase textbooks, and especially when a lot of times paraprofessionals are not paid, that a teacher would be paid. And also realizing many of these teachers, if push comes to shove and they need to really focus on one or the other, all of them have mentioned that they need the income, and that we have to do a great job at Weber of making sure that they have access to a schedule that's going to work for them.